Yo guys, what up? Nick Qrow in here. Today I'm giving you another RWBY discussion video. This one's very different than my other videos because I'm not necessarily telling you what I think is going to happen to a character or what may happen to a character, what happened to a character, or kind of assess what they are and aren't capable of, but instead I'm going to be discussing to you what I like specifically about that character. Because with RWBY Vol.5 coming right around the corner in October, I think it's important that we come out and thoroughly discuss why we like these specific characters. I mean, yeah, it's clear as day you like a character, but what is the specific reason as for your liking of the character? And in this video, I will be discussing to you why I like Blake Belladonna, everyone's favorite cat girl.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Why'd you join the White Fang?
The reason I like Blake Belladonna, I'm going to start off with her backstory, because that is a big part of why I like her character. Now, Blake was originally a member of a White Fang, and she specifically said it was like she was born into it. And the White Fang originally was a peaceful organization protesting peace and freedom and equality for faunus. Which, if you don't know what a faunus is, which I hope you do, a faunus in the world of Remnant in the show RWBY is basically everything about their appearance is very much identical to a human, except for one characteristic that is animalistic. And in this case, Blake has cat ears. Qrow in his world of Remnant talked about a guy having a lizard tail. Her mom has cat ears. I'm not sure what Adam has. Ilya can turn colors like a chameleon. And they're just a race of people that look nearly identical to humans, except there's always one animalistic trait or feature or ability that they possess. Blake Belladonna was originally part of the White Fang, like I said, who used to be peaceful protesters for equality and freedom of faunus, which we just discussed. Faunus and she was going along with everything. She thought she was making a difference, but she soon found out that she was just being a youthful optimist, as she puts it. And once her father Qrow stepped down as high leader, the peaceful organization and the peaceful protests that they were doing suddenly faded away. And when the new leader stepped up with a new way of thinking, suddenly the peaceful protests were being replaced with organized attacks for people who treated the faunus differently than ordinary run-of-the-mill humans. And they were just being treated differently, so they started attacking people who didn't treat them right, robbing trains and dust shops, and just people who treated the faunus like they were like the scum of the earth. And that leads to Blake, the present day of Blake. Once she realized that the peaceful organization and that her partner Adam suddenly became monstrous and negative and cruel, almost to the point where they mirrored humanity in the sense that they were treating humans like they were the scum of the earth, she decided to leave the White Fang so that she can do things her way as a huntress in peace. And that led her into the character we know and love. The other thing I like about Blake is her inner conflict with herself in her past and what she's done in the past. She's a very, very relatable character in the sense that she's been discriminated against for her species, hated, treated like the scum of the earth, and her inner conflict is that with all the conflict that she contributed to initially with the White Fang, how can she erase all those years of hate and conflict and bitterness. She's constantly fighting the demons of her past. She's under the mentality that she has to do things on her own, and that she has to do it on her own because it's her problem, and she'll deal with it because it's her problem. And that leads me to just think like she's such a realistic character, she's such a relatable character, and she's such a great dynamic character. She isn't, and not to criticize not to criticize RWBY, but RWBY and Yang, but their reasons are kind of less compelling than, say, someone like Blake. Blake has a past that kind of just dictates her current course. Whereas you have a character like RWBY, sure, she read the books and that just of huntresses and huntsmen, and that led her onto her course, but that's such a not necessarily one-dimensional kind of reason for doing what you're doing, but it's just a very, I don't know, low quality kind of reason for what she's doing. And Blake is just someone you can feel for. You can tell, she's haunted and she wants to fix everything that she's done. She just is stuck in the past and she doesn't know how. But that's why she has her friends like Yang, RWBY, Weiss, and Sun, Neptune, and so many others. And that is what leads me to like Blake's character from a personal standpoint, and from a standpoint that I know why she's fighting. She's such a great dynamic character. And the final thing we are discussing about Blake and why she's a character that I like is you can't talk about RWBY without talking about the many of great, cool, and symbolic semblances. And I thoroughly enjoy seeing Blake's semblance in action. And if you don't know what Blake's semblance is, essentially what it is like, initially I thought it was very much speed, in that her opponent hits an after image of her speed. However, it's very similar to that, except instead of speed creating the after image, it is her shadow creating the after image, which I think is perfectly, acceptable for her character. I think it's very symbolic of her character. She's leaping behind a shadow, and the shadow takes the hit while she avoids the hit. It's a very cool, useful, and all around, just very unique semblance that I enjoy watching on screen. And that's what leads me to like Blake's character. I like her backstory. I like what her backstory has morphed her into. And I like her semblance. These are the reasons why I like Blake. What makes or break a character for me is their backstory primarily, and how that backstory leads into the current character we see on screen. And that is why I like Blake. She's a realistic character, she's a relatable character, she's an amazing character, and if you don't like her character, I don't get why. She's phenomenal, and she's just overall just a phenomenal, amazing, relatable character that you just can't hate. And guys, that concludes this RWBY discussion video. If you guys like this video, rate it 1 through 10, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that fun crap. And as always, this is Nick Browin, out with a yang.